Open heart, open mind. Hello everyone. I warmly welcome you all to the Sattva channel. Sattva Project is an online official platform of the Sattva Project, and my name is Samiksha. Before we start with our discussion, I would like to thank a person who manages all the technicalities in the background, our broadcast director, Brother Chong. Brother Chong, would you like to say hi to our audiences, please?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our session today. Welcome to those watching live on both Facebook and YouTube. For those who are watching live on Facebook, please do like and share so that more people can benefit. And those on YouTube, you can also like, share, and subscribe. And now back to you, Samisha.
Thank you, brother. So, now before we start with our discussion, let me introduce to you the topic of tonight's discussion. We are going to discuss on the topic entitled as what is fake dharma. Okay. So I would like to introduce to you the moderator and the contributors of the tonight's discussion. First, Brother Chong. Brother Ching Wei, or preferred to be called as Sherab, his Tibetan name meaning wisdom, is a freelance writer, speaker, and translator. He has been working and translating for many spiritual teachers in various talks, retreats, seminars, and workshops since 1997. He shares his experiences and knowledge on various schools of Tibetan Buddhism, Zen, synchronicity, and basic principles in integral spirituality, as well as creative visualization through his meditation and spiritual workshops. His published works of translation included Introduction to Buddhism and Tantric Meditation by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Happiness is a State of Mind by His Holiness the 12th Galwang Drukpa, his three teachings by Jesumma Tenzin Palmo, the the Hearful Path of Awakening by Khenpo Samyam Karma Kelsen. A warm welcome, Brother Chong. Sorry, Brother Sherab.
Thank you, Samisha.
Welcome, Brother Sherab. Okay. Our guest speaker is Dr. Mattia Salvini. Dr. Mattia Salvini presently is a Dean of Scriptural Languages and the Faculty of the Liberal Arts at International Buddhist College, Thailand. He has obtained his master and bachelor degree in Sanskrit from RKM Vivekananda College, Chennai. He holds PhD in Buddhist Studies from the School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS, London. A warm welcome, teacher.
Thank you. Sawadee-khap.
Okay, next is Bibek Sharma. He was born in Nepal, finished his BA in Buddhist Studies from International Buddhist College, Thailand. Further, he completed his master's in Buddhist Studies from Phu Quang University, Taiwan, where he learned classical Buddhist Chinese and translated a correspondence between Kumarachiyo and Hui Yuan to complete his master thesis. For his PhD, he joined Mahidol University, where he is currently working on Yashomitra's Abhidharma Kosha Vakhya, a sub-commentary on the Abhidharma Kosha Bhashya to complete his PhD thesis. Currently, he is translating the first chapter of Abhidharmakota Bhashya as translated by Xuan for BDK Japan. He reads Chinese, Sanskrit, Pali, Hindi, and French apart from his own mother tongue Nepali. A warm welcome, teacher. Okay, now over to you, Brother Sherab.
Thank you, Samisha. Okay, welcome, Dr. Matia and Bibek. So today we have a Dharma series with the title, very interesting title. What is fake Dharma? So my first question is towards Dr. Matia. No, how do you define Dharma and what is fake Dharma?
The word dharma has many meanings, and it's used both in Buddhist and non-Buddhist systems. In the Buddhist systems, it has several different meanings, and I think that the main meaning that we are thinking of in this context is when the word dharma is used as more or less a synonym of the Buddhist teachings. So probably what we want to discuss is which teachings can reliably be said to be Buddhist teachings.
Mm-hmm.
So this is somewhat directly connected to what we discussed in the past, which is how Buddhism is transmitted. So the question of what is fake Dharma is not really a straightforward one, because what constitutes genuine Dharma for one particular tradition may not be regarded as genuine Dharma for another tradition.
Mm-hmm.
This does not necessarily mean that they actively think that it is fake, but at the very least they might think that they're not very sure that it is genuine. So this
Mm-hmm.
also should be distinguished. Like someone
Mm-hmm.
might feel that okay, let's say Mahayana is not. I'm not sure that it is a genuine teaching, even without necessarily saying that they are sure that it is fake. So I think that for most people, it is generally easier or more reasonable to say, I'm not sure that is genuine, rather than just saying straight away in a very direct way, this is fake, especially in public. So, of course, when we talk in a very informal way, we might just over express ourselves and say, oh, this really looks fake. Fine. But
Mm-hmm.
I think in public we have to be extremely cautious about that, because it's a very complex matter. Sometimes we might think something is fake, and then some very high respected master shows that there are reasons not to completely discard it. So I am a little bit wary of easily saying this is fake. I think that is a problem. There is one expression in the Buddhist text, Saddharma Pratirupaka, that refers to a semblance of a dharma, something which looks like the dharma but is not genuinely the dharma. And this refers to a specific point of time between, well, in this world sphere, it should be that first the dharma is genuine, then there is the dharma's semblance of a dharma, and then the dharma disappears. So that seems to be the idea. But when we actively try to identify it with something specific, then I think it is quite difficult. It is quite difficult because it's easier to say, let's say, there's a certain teacher or scholar or whatever who has a certain set of positions, and it is easier to just focus on one or more of those specific positions and just raise the question, how does this fit with the rest of the teachings, rather than saying this whole dharma is fake. So I'm not sure exactly where to fit this category of fake dharma. I have some doubts about how much, to what extent we can use that expression. It looks too polemical to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Mattia, for that explanation. It seems like there are a different level or different degree of fakeness in certain things. Like I remember one Rinpoche speak about fake products. There's a fake, real fake, and fake. So I don't know which which fakeness of which level of fakeness that we're talking about here.
Mm.
But according to Mattia just now, like seems like you are putting the word genuine or authentic dharma equivalent to original dharma. Like the dharma had to be spoken by Buddha himself to be
Yes.
considered as authentic. Yeah, but according to Mahayana teaching, many like for example the sutra of six patriarch platform sutra is not spoken by the Buddha, but it's
But it's
spoken by
not
the
part
six
of
patriarch.
Tripitaka.
Okay, so it's considered not the authentic dharma by
No,
other
no,
traditions.
it is considered authentic dharma, but not in
Hmm.
the sense of being Buddha Vachana. That's different.
Hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
that's just it happens to be the case that they used the word sutra for that text, but I don't think it was meant very literally to mean that it is the same as Buddha Vachana. So I
Hmm.
think that's a little bit different.
Hmm.
And again, you're introducing another complication, because uh, one thing is deciding whether something is Buddha Vachana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is one issue, and the other one is to decide whether something is authentic dharma. That's another issue, because, for
Okay.
example, you can take a treatise and regard it as authentic dharma, even if it is not directly Buddha Vachana, so the words of the
Hmm.
Buddha. So
Okay.
that these two issues have to be distinguished. One is uh, word of a Buddha or not word of a Buddha. The
Hmm.
other one is, even if it is not word of a Buddha, is it compatible and is it genuinely representing the intent of the words of a Buddha? So these two
Hmm.
issues, I think, need to be distinguished.
Hmm. So therefore, it cannot be considered as a fake dharma, even it's not spoken by the Buddha, right?
Exactly. But if
Hmm.
if if it is presented as spoken by the Buddha,
Hmm.
but it was just invented by you yesterday, then that's a different
Hmm.
story.
Hmm. Okay. So can Bibek enlighten us by simplify the interpretation of what is fake dharma, Bibek?
Well, I can you hear me, first of all?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
clearly. Yep. Hmm.
I understand your question slightly differently, and
Mm-hmm.
then perhaps for that I need to explain it a little bit more. There is an inherent idea within Buddhism, actually, in the Indian system of dharmas, let's say, that things degenerate, time degenerate, and things degenerate. So it moves from the very ideal position towards a middling position, and then it goes towards the worst, and so on and so forth. Not only in terms of age, but also in terms of the practices and so on and so forth. So, based on this idea, the Buddha himself has given a kind of the idea how his teachings will stay, remain for a certain period of time, and disappear, right? So mainly there are three periods that we find common in almost all Buddhist texts. The first period, or the first thing, is the true dharma or genuine dharma. Sorry, can you
Can you repeat
can you
that?
hear me?
I think Bibek, there is some disturbance, I think.
Okay. So the
Yep.
so the first term is the Sadharma, the true dharma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it lasts for a certain period of time. That is also very much. It is there is no unanimity about that thing. Then comes the second period of time when there will be Sadharma Pratirupaka, that is a semblance dharma, right? It is well, Pratirupaka means a kind of a it's a kind of a copy of the dharma, and then comes the Paschima dharma, the last period of dharma, and then the dharma disappears completely. So this is a common idea, as far as I know, in all the Buddhist traditions. Now about how you define all this, as Mathiya has already explained, how you how you determine something is genuine and not genuine depends on the tradition, for example, right? Number one. Number two, how you define this deadline, I mean the period of time, also depends on the text, because different texts talk about different time frame of the Sadharma, the real Dharma, the genuine Dharma, then the middling type of Dharma, semblance Dharma, or the Pratirupaka Dharma, and then at the Paschima Dharma, or the later period of Dharma, right? So, so that is second point. Third point is that what does it mean that it degenerates? Now we have different concepts on this idea too. For example, it is also possible that it degenerates in terms of uh, the authenticity of the teachings. Something is mixed. Something is kind of it is let's say mm, a non-dharma is mixed. That idea also we find there, and it is also possible that those who practice the dharma um, uh, okay, let me rephrase it. The dharma remains in the sense the teaching and the practice remains, but the capacity of the people degenerates slowly. That's why the the realization gets lesser and lesser according to this period. And at one point there will be no realization at all. Dharma remains. I mean, in the sense of there will be teachings, there will be people with practicing some kind of precept, but at the same time there will be no realization. So we find all these different spectrum of idea
Remain.
within
I mean,
Buddhist
in the
text.
sense of there will be no realization. So we find
There's an echo coming. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't
okay. Please
know how.
continue, Bibek. Yeah,
Yeah.
please continue. Yeah.
So and then when you say fake dharma, like in English, let's say from the point of view of English, when you say really fake dharma, then we have this idea that perhaps it is a kind of a counterfeit dharma, really something not taught by the Buddha, not found in any of the traditions. And that also we find in the Buddhist text. For example, I can give you one example. There is one Pali Sutta called Sadharma Pratirupaka Sutta, right? And here the Buddha says that he offers one simile. He says, when the counterfeit gold appears, the real gold will lose its value. So here the Buddha seems to say that, okay, his real teachings will still be there, but then a kind of a counterfeit things will start to appear. And then his real teachings will be superseded by this. Uh, and additionally, we also find in the suttas Buddha saying, for example, in certain suttas like Anagata Bhayani Sutta, the Buddha warns his students that there will be some dangers in the future in terms of his the preservation of his dharma, and then he says, okay, in the future, there will be people who will not listen to the very profound teachings of the Buddha. They will not listen to the teachings of pertaining to the emptiness, for example, right?
Mhm.
But they will listen to the teachings of those outsiders composed by poets, elegant in words, rhetorical things, and so on and so forth. So this is also found within the Buddhist text. So here, when we use the term fake dharma, then we have all these ranges of meaning, uh, as far as I can see, right? So that's how I take your question, and that's how I understand your question.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Bhatia, do you agree with this kind of interpretation? Since we need to make this dialogue easier to move on, we need to narrow down the interpretation of fake Dharma. So, Bibek talk about the degeneration of Dharma and something that look like Dharma but is totally nothing to do with Buddha Dharma, but confusing people. Looks like Dharma, but actually it's not uh, Buddha Dharma. Yeah.
Yes, I have no disagreement. I'm just confused because Bibek said he
Mm,
understands the question differently, but I had mentioned the same three stages
mm.
just in a brief form, and it seems that you just offered more detail. Uh, I cannot quite understand where exactly the difference is.
Okay, maybe I can explain. The difference here I understood as not in terms of what is dharma, genuine dharma itself within Buddhist tradition, but in the sense that the Buddha's teaching itself will slowly degenerate. That's the point I wanted to emphasize. And it degenerates in two ways. One, its scriptures and its teachings and practices slowly disappear one after another. There is an idea that a certain practice will disappear in sequence, and at the end, everything will disappear. Then also there is an idea that people's mind will degenerate and they will not be able to understand the teaching and they will not be frozen
Mm.
and so on and so forth. So that's how I kind of took this question and then interpreted, not in
So you,
terms of mm,
you don't think that when they speak of Saddharma Pratirupaka, they refer to the possibility that some people are actually teaching things which are not in harmony with the Dharma taught by the Buddha while
I,
saying
I
that.
I gave the example of that one too. We do find that that reference, for example, in the Saddharma Pratirupaka Sutta itself. The Buddha he offers one simile, saying that when there will be some counterfeit gold, the real gold will lose its value in this society, or something like
Okay,
that.
but that means, Vivek, in my understanding, that means that it boils down to the same thing. Because if one says that at some point there will be some people teaching dharma that is
Mhm.
not in harmony with what the Buddha taught, that's the same thing as saying that there might be some people who are doing that. That was, well, what's the difference? I just don't get the difference there. It's the same idea.
Yes, in terms of from the point of view of that explanation, it is the same. But at the same time, we also find the idea that the the dharmas will remain there, the scriptures will remain there, but the people's mind will degenerate. They will not be able to understand it, practice it. They will be like let's say Buddha says worthless. There will be worthless people within the sangha itself, and then because of that there will be less and less fruits out of those dharmas. Do you understand?
Right.
Like there are very like we can look at this from various point of views, and there are
Mhm.
and we find various point of views in terms of what is fake dharma and what is uh, not fake dharma. Well,
Okay.
uh, the word itself is very vague and was never kind of used in the Buddhist text, because when we say pratirupaka, it is not really fake dharma, it is a semblance dharma. So it's
Mm.
there is a nuance. Yeah, there's a kind of a nuance, right? For
Mhm.
example, I can give you a fake dharma. Let's say, let me give you an example. I would say the teachings that also the Buddha has explained. Actually, he has said that the teachings of outsiders, for example, we find explanations by, for example, Swami Swami Vivekananda,
Mm-hmm.
who who says that the Buddha's teachings are uh, the teachings found in the Vedanta, for example, or the Upanishad, or something like that. That is a fake interpretation. That is completely fake, right? So my question to you is, what kind of fakeness you are talking about? Are you talking about the fake, genuine and not genuine dharma within the range of Buddhist tradition? Are we talking about the degeneration of the people's mind? They have more and more places, that's why they cannot understand the teachings, and so on and so forth, right? So there are ranges of ideas there, as far as I'm concerned. And then I also find that this is a very, very complex idea. And there is another, one more idea, let me just add. There is one character, very, very interesting character called Mara, right? There are four Maras explained in the Buddhist text. There is one Mara who is a Devaputra, who is a god, who continuously creates obstacles and problems among the practitioners and non-practitioners, so that they don't come to the Buddha's teaching. Those who came to the Buddha's teaching, they get deluded all the time, and then they do not understand his teachings. He is the one who actually creates fake dharmas. This idea is also there in the Buddhist text. I don't remember the sutta, but once the Buddha goes to one of the Brahma lokas to talk to one of the Brahmas, and the Mara actually, he deludes all the people in the assembly. And then the Buddha says, I know you are deluding all the people. That's why people are not listening to my words. But you are there. He identifies him, right? So there are several different types of ideas of fake dharma within Buddhist tradition, as far as I can see.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay, I agree with you, Bibek, that the fakeness of certain thing is most dangerous for the authentic one. Like even in Chinese philosophy, also it says that 仪式, something that's similar to the authentic thing, is very dangerous in how to say, misrepresenting the authentic stuff. And
But
this happened in Dharma as well. Okay, and for you, I think you make a few categorization, that degeneration of Dharma within Buddhism, and also Mara. You talk about Mara, and also some non-Buddhist teacher who use how to say, who use their own interpretation to in faking the Dharma. So, but this is because Dharma is not only the word used by Buddhism, but Hinduism has also have their own Dharma, and then there are very few people who can differentiate um, between the view of Hinduism and the view of Buddhism. I'm not sure. Zosa, can you just once say that? Oh, Bam is here. I'm so glad
Bem
you're
is
back.
here.
Bam, hello, Bam. you're late for half an hour, but glad you're back. I tried to call you, but okay. We are just talking about the interesting point here. Okay, now you talk about there's only a very few person in the world can speak about the difference between the view, the non-dual view between Buddhism and Hinduism. I'm not sure if it's Nagarjuna or someone, one more person. So in that terms, do you agree, Matya, that Bibek way of interpreting that those Hindu gurus like to say that Buddhism is similar to Vedanta and all these things are totally wrong?
I agree with Bibek on that. I think that
Mm-mm.
it's not a plausible interpretation. I used to actually have debates with my own teachers when I was
Mm.
an MA student. But I wanted to mention one thing. My understanding, Bibek, is that one of the things you described is, I don't think it is referred to as fake dharma in itself, but rather it is described as that which happens during the period of fake dharma. So the degeneration of the mind of sentient beings, I don't think is itself called fake dharma, but rather is what happens during the time of the prevalence of fake dharma. I think these two things are conceptually, somewhat different. But regarding Vedanta, I would agree. I agree with Bibek personally. That is my own understanding of Vedanta. I think it is quite different from any form of Buddhism that I know of. But it's a very technical matter. This is also we have to admit it, that if we start talking about the similarity and difference between certain forms of Vedanta and certain forms of Yogacara, then we get into really the details of Buddhist thought, as well as the details of Vedanta. Which type of interpretation of Vedanta are we referring to? So it becomes a very, very technical matter. And I think that I can say that I agree with Bibek, but if we wanted to really discuss why exactly there is this difference, where precisely it is, that is challenging. I mean, it's something that would take some time and would bring us a little bit far away from the main topic, maybe, of the of today's event.
Discussion. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Matya. Welcome, Bam. Bam. So we are talking about fake dharma today. So, in your own interpretation, what is fake dharma? As you can see that we can recognize a fake product, like for its the price, the quality of the product, the packaging of the product, and who is selling the product, and what is the payment method that we use to buy the product. There are many counterfeit products in the world today. So, according to you, Ben, what is so-called fake dharma? You are muted, man.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So this is a very difficult question to answer, but I understand that we are talking in the context of Buddhism, only Buddhism. Because if we
Yes.
say Dharma, it doesn't necessarily mean only Buddhism. Dharma could be used for like Indian philosophies, or in some contexts, they even use it in order to translate religions. So it could mean different religions of the world. And when you say fake Dharma, well, it's quite complicated, because first of all, you need a definition for this kind of phenomena. How you define fake Dharma? For example, if I say that you need to kill your father and mother, is it a fake Dharma, or is it just a misunderstanding? If you say that this is a fake Dharma, then Buddha himself said it in one of the sutras, and of course he didn't mean that you need to kill your own father and mother. He said he meant different. That means that you need to remove your obscurities and etc. So we need to be a bit cautious about the fake Dharma. But probably I do understand what you mean. You mean that some people who try to present some kind of fake teachings as being original Buddhist teaching. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, it depends also what you mean by origin, actually. Yeah.
Well, those teachings that are preserved scripturally. Mainly, that's what I mean.
Yeah, in traditional Buddhism, in that way, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we go along with that. Interpretation is good. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's complicated. You need to look deep into the question. And of course, I do think that there are some, I'm not sure, are they fake teachings? But it seems to me that quite often they are misinterpreted just to make life easier for some teachers. But it's quite complicated, and I would say dangerous point. Because if I blame somebody now and call names, later somebody can sue me. I'm sorry, can sue me in a court, and I will get myself into trouble.
or somebody's mother might show you at this point.
Somebody's mother.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question from a different perspective. Okay, because fake dharma normally was taught by so-called fake gurus or charlatans or cults nowadays in the day. So can I ask this question in a different way? That mm, what kind of teachers that we need to be aware of, since the fake so-called fake dharma come from them? It's a teaching taught by them that is similar to authentic dharma, but it's not the real dharma. One thing, one point. Second point is that um, can I ask you all what is so-called sadharma or authentic dharma? So if you define what is authentic dharma, sadharma, then anything that's against the principle of sadharma is, of course, fake dharma. Um, yeah, Dr. Matia, what's your take in this? Yeah.
I mean, you just asked a question that is like 25 centuries of Buddhist history, because this is why we have all the Buddhist schools and many different interpretations. And as I was saying, there's not everyone is going to agree very, very clearly on this point. There are some guidelines that were given by the Buddha, repeated by others, but I even heard people who disagree with those guidelines. So even just to decide that something is words of a Buddha, there are some guidelines, and now there's some people who even disagree with those guidelines. So it is. It's a very difficult question in the way you have posed it, because I agree with Bem. I don't want to be sued by anybody, and so if you start giving examples, then it doesn't go well. It's of course I think the more reasonable thing to do is to do one's best to propose a version of a dharma that one regards, to the best of one knowledge, as being genuine, and then people will make their own decisions, and they will see the difference, and they will come to their own conclusions about which looks like is more likely to be genuine and which one doesn't. If we are not in a situation where we can have a debate organized by a king, and then the person who loses gets into some kind of trouble, and things are solved in that kind of way. I don't think we are in that situation nowadays. So I don't know exactly. I mean, your question is at the same time very specific, because basically to answer it, we would have to give examples.
Yeah.
But it's also very vague. So I feel a bit stuck in respect to how exactly to address it.
Okay, Bibek. As you
Okay.
know, I want to give you a background on this. That as you know, in Chinese Buddhist circle, there are many fake teachers who pretend to be authentic Dharma lineage. And I'm sure you know about the names of these groups. And then can we how to say officially declare or announce that these people are actually fake Dharma?
There's a
You know?
website. There's a
Yeah.
website.
We'll start with the names, or the list, yeah. Do
Well,
you agree with this kind of
for
practice?
example,
Yeah.
uh, for example, I can give you one example. There's a list of teachers, authentic teachers, listed in the website of His Holiness Dalai Lama, for example, right?
Okay.
So we do have uh, a certain kind of idea within Buddhism, and also because His Holiness Dalai Lama is a great figure, respected by all Buddhists and also non-Buddhists all around the world. So there is this idea that we can say that certain teachers are real Buddhist teachers and others are not. Right? That website, the listing there itself there. Um, as Matthias said, the Buddha gave some criteria to distinguish between what is real teaching, what is his real teaching, and what is not real teaching. Now, maybe I can give you some examples. For example, I don't want to. It's not to offend anyone, but it is just to give an idea that how Buddhism functions and how Buddhists perceive this thing. It's not about offending anyone. So Buddhists think that anything that anyone teaches should accord with the teachings given by the Buddha. That means it should be somewhere in Tripitaka, or some treatises written by authentic Buddhist masters in the past. That should the teaching should be validated by these things. For example, we can say even when Buddhist writers were writing something, they would quote the Buddha, for example, because his word is considered as the aptavasana. I mean, it's a kind of a pramana. It's a kind of a valid knowledge itself, right? So even Nagarjuna or Asanga or Chandrakirti or so on and so forth, all the recognized Buddhist teachers, they used to quote the Buddha to show that what they were teaching was in line with the Buddha. Now, now this is one definite criteria to determine whether someone is Buddhist teacher or not. Number one. Number two, I would say that if someone is not trained under an authorized teacher, a recognized teacher, a teacher that comes from an unbroken lineage of some of the Buddhist lineages, then perhaps we have to rethink about this teacher, right? For example, I can give you one example. As I already said, I don't want to offend anyone, but this is the truth, and this is how Buddhists perceive it. Osho, Rajneesh, all around the world, a lot of people consider him as a Buddhist teacher, and he interpreted many of the Buddhist teachings. And then in Nepal and India and all around the world, they think that he was teaching a authentic Buddhist teaching. But actually, when we examine what I just said from the criteria, he did not have any kind of Buddhist teachers. He was not recognized by any of the Buddhist teachers, except some rumors that he was recognized by some high lamas, right? And more to that, additionally, his teachings directly contradicts the teachings of the Buddha, for example. So, so how can we say that he's an authentic Buddhist teacher? He does not fulfill any of the criteria, general criteria even, to be a Buddhist teacher, for example, right? I think you are asking something like this. So I would say that people should check whether someone is a recognized teacher or not. Is his or her teaching aligns with the teachings of the Buddha, right? He is kind of recognized by other contemporary Buddhist masters, whether he is recognized or not.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe these are some of the general criteria that people can apply to see whether someone is a Buddhist teacher, for example. Now, maybe I'll just vaguely give you another example. Someone claims, I'm just kind of inventing, someone claims that he is a god, right? And also mixes with Buddhist teaching. He says that he's a god, or he's a part of a god. He was sent by the god. I hear God means Almighty God, the Creator God. And then he also says that he's a incarnation of some kind of, I don't know, some kind of Buddhist figure. How is it possible? Because the Buddha categorically denied any kind of creator God. So this is not possible at all, right?
Mm.
So the most important thing is that people should get informed about the Buddha's teachings, and then try to find out whether the teachings of this person uh, is authentic. I think that is the most important criteria as far as I can see.
Mm-hmm. So Ben, do you agree? What's your response to this? You agree that a teacher must be authentically recognized by the tradition and so on and so forth
Yes,
by
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Sure. Teacher must be, first of all, he must be recognized by authentic tradition. He must not disagree, or his teaching must not disagree with the treatises and with the teaching of the Buddha, with the sutras and treatises. But as I said before, it's quite complicated, and let me explain it a bit. So when we talk about a fake dharma, what does it mean? It could be really fake. For
Mm.
example, you remember there is an example of Angulimala. Angulimala, he was duped by his teacher, who said that I know a very special oral instruction, Upadesha, and I will give it only to you. You need to kill 1,000 people, make a garland on your neck out of those fingers, and then you will obtain liberation. It was completely fake.
Yeah.
And it was a fake teaching, for everybody, Buddhist or non-Buddhist. He just invented this teaching in order to take revenge on Angulimala, who supposedly tried to violate his wife, but it was not so. But anyway, it's a long story. I don't want to tell all of it here. But what this guru gave to Angulimala was completely fake teaching.
Mm.
And you need to understand that in Buddhism, sometimes it happens so that people, for personal benefit, or just wanting to be famous, or very innovative, and very, because you see, if you tell somebody something very traditional and very authentic, it's not too much interesting. And again, start talking about your refugees and keeping vows and non-killing and blah blah blah, and you can read it everywhere. But if I tell you, wait, I have very special teaching only for you, and like in 3 years you will get liberation, you see, it's a kind of a thing that you could use in order to obtain benefit. This is the first case. First case, I mean the real fake dharma. Though those two things are completely opposite. I mean real and fake, but this is the real fake dharma. Secondly, there are a lot of misunderstandings of Buddhism. I was not present at one conference, but my friends told me that during the conference, a person was presenting a paper, and this person said that in Buddhism nowadays we do not strive anymore for the Buddhahood, for the enlightenment. What we need is to pursue happiness, simple human happiness, and this is the ultimate goal. Nowhere, nowhere whatsoever, anybody, Buddhist or great teachers, sets anything like that. That the ultimate goal or aim of Buddhism is to pursue the worldly happiness. And this person understood it like that. So because it seems to me that it was a little bit, it was a materialistic understanding of Buddhism, not to try to obtain something that you cannot get in your hands, but to concentrate on something that you could realize and obtain fast. I mean, like directly in some short time. So it is just a misunderstanding. Is it a fake dharma? You could say yes, but is it a real fake dharma? I think no. It's just misunderstanding. Many
Mm.
people, misunderstanding something, try to present it as something authentic, but not because they want to mislead somebody, only just because they do not understand it themselves. It happens so sometimes. And there is another thing. The third point I would like to tell you about. It's quite important to use your discerning wisdom. It's quite important first to study the question. Because, for example, in Tibet, there was a famous Lama, Sakya Pandita. And in his work, the Domsumravya, the discernment of three kinds of vows, he wrote something like, nowhere in Sanskrit text I saw a rite of initiation, or ritual of initiation given through a balin. Bali means a kind of special ritual cake. you make in order to give initiation. And during his time, seems like many lamas from different traditions used this kind of ritual in order to confer initiation, empowerment. And he was criticizing that. He said that nowhere in the Sanskrit text you could find such a ritual. And what I'm trying to say that if it's necessary to be cautious and learn study the question, because sometimes people who do not understand another tradition try to criticize it and immediately call it like fake tradition.
Mm.
And it seems to me that in Tibet it happened at least once, and quite on a great scale, when Shantarakshita came to Tibet. There was a question of choosing a tradition, Indian tradition or Chinese tradition. And in Tibet, in Lhasa, they had Chinese Zen masters or Chan masters who taught meditation. And at some point, there was a disagreement between the Indian fraction and Chinese fraction, and it happened so historically that the Indian fraction won this
Yeah.
dispute. And so, what does it mean? It means if I am right, it must mean that somebody is wrong. And if the Indian fraction won, it should mean that somebody else was wrong.
Mhm.
Isn't it so? But can we say that those Chan masters were wrong? I do not think so.
I think
You
Ben,
see,
you're referring to the case of the dispute or
Samya dispute,
yeah,
Samya
the
dispute.
yes
Yeah,
dispute,
yeah,
the
exactly.
awakening, the instant or gradual awakening, right?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
So what I'm saying that you need to be very careful about when it comes to the question of fake dharma. You need to learn study the question well before you issue any judgment.
Yes. One interpretation given by you, Ben, is the watered down dharma, something like similar to dharma, but not as how to say meticulous as a real dharma represents. Like then you can see a lot of new age books like Bibek talk about Osho's, and people like Krishnamurti talk about so-called universal teaching of yeah, and then but there's some scholar within Buddhism itself also, like Stephen Batchelor, who promote the kind of Buddhism without belief. You don't have to believe in reincarnation. You don't have to believe in cause and effect, all these things, but just practice the so-called he called as authentic dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, without this kind of belief. So, Matya, I want to point this question to you. Do you do you agree that this kind of dharma, is it fake dharma, or what kind of dharma is this?
I think using the word fake dharma is too strong.
Yeah.
I can say is a type of dharma that I would find to be an implausible interpretation of a Buddhist teachings.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't seem to me that it is possible to present Buddhist practice in the way in which Stephen Batchelor does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that doesn't mean that using the word fake dharma is going to be profitable, because
Mm-hmm.
some people might benefit from that as well, and they might make a connection to the Buddhist tradition even through that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they connect to that and they learn some basic meditation, and then they complement it with some other type of study. And if I have very sincere intention, automatically, if I'm right, they will see that that interpretation is not plausible, and if I'm wrong, then I'm just wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
think that would be my approach to that. It's I cannot say that is fake, because if I say that is fake,
Mm-hmm.
I'm basically giving myself too much authority,
Mm-hmm.
because it is basically something that I can say that I completely disagree with it. I can say
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't make any sense to me,
Mm-hmm.
but I cannot elevate myself as a kind of impartial authority to decide which one is fake, which one is true. I can just say that to me is completely nonsensical, and I can
Mm-hmm.
try to explain why, and then it will be up to each person to decide which one they wish to rely upon as being genuine, and which one they wish to keep some distance from.
Okay, so can we say that it's partially authentic, not fully genuine in that way, Matya?
No, I'm saying that I would personally refrain from saying anything like that. I would say something different. I would say, I don't agree with it. I don't think this is an interpretation that makes sense to me. And I would explain why. And then the person whom I'm talking to can check for themselves and come to their own conclusion as to whether they want to engage with it or not. That's what I mean. Because it is also too vague. If you just say this is genuine, this is not genuine, it's too vague. In case of Stephen Batchelor, he has many different arguments. I disagree with almost all of them, so I would have to take each argument and show why I don't think this is plausible. And it's not the only one. I mean, this is actually a much broader issue. And when you take Stephen Batchelor, actually, I think it is less effective. You could take others, which I think would be more effective. So, for example, there are some Zen masters who actually come from an unbroken lineage of Zen, who have the same idea as Stephen Batchelor, actually more extreme, because they don't say they might or not might be rebirth. They say just, no, there's no rebirth. Buddhism is only to calm your nerves. They're not agnostic. They are clearly materialistic and very, very emphatically so. And they come from an unbroken lineage. So that would be, I think, a more relevant example. But again, even in that case, it would be more difficult because I don't read Japanese and classical Chinese, and they can claim that this is what their tradition implies. And there are even some prominent scholars who have that same idea, basically. So it's not such a marginal position at the moment. If we just call it names, we don't go very much forward. I mean, I can tell you, oh, it's fake Dharma, okay. But then this other person comes and says, no, it's not fake Dharma. I have a continuous lineage since 20 generations, and it's unbroken. So it's not fake Dharma. And we don't discuss about the actual content and the point that doesn't work. Then what do we get from that name?
Yes, understand that. And Matya, there are so many forms of new Buddhism nowadays. Humanistic Buddhism and what do you call this? Engaged Buddhism, etc., etc. So, from the academic point of view, what is the best attitude for Buddhist scholars and Buddhist practitioners to approach these different kinds of so-called new Buddhism?
That is a difficult question because which academic point of view are you referring to? Do you mean as a sociologist, as an anthropologist?
Yeah, up to you. Yeah.
Well, it's completely different. If somebody studies it as a sociologist, then these are social phenomena and they will analyze them from that perspective. If somebody studies it as a historian, they will study it in a different way. So it depends very much on how they're studying it. I don't do those things, so I do not know. I'm neither a sociologist, nor a historian, nor an anthropologist. So I do not deal personally with the new Buddhist movements, except indirectly. Like sometimes I have students who study Master Yun Shun, who had something to do with humanistic Buddhism. But you see, that is another very good example. Master Yun Shun is somebody who revived the study of the Chinese Tripitaka in the Chinese tradition. At the same time, some of his ideas could be regarded as being extremely innovative, including this idea of humanistic Buddhism and his approach to it. So how does one deal with that? It's very complicated. It's not in his case. Clearly, I doubt anybody will have a black and white response to his type of Buddhism.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Bibek, yeah, I think you study in, yeah, I know you got something to say about the so-called humanistic Buddhism, since you
Yeah.
have studied in Fo Guang before, yeah. And I know that there's many versions of humanistic Buddhism nowadays, yeah.
Yes,
Tzu
of
form
course.
of Buddhism, and then Fo Guang style and Fa Ku San also have different kind. So what's your
Yeah.
take in this? Yeah.
Well, let me start from the beginning. What Mathieu was saying. It is said in the Buddhist texts that even if you take one precept, it will be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
If you take two, it will be beneficial, of course, right? Because it accords with how the things are in this world. The Buddhist teachings are about uh, things as they are, how they work, right? So yes, if you take one precept, because at the time of the Buddha, there were some people who were taking only one precept, they were taking two precepts, they were taking five precepts, they were fully practicing, they were monks and nuns fully practicing, and bodhisattvas fully practicing, and there were some people who attained higher attainments, who were still struggling, and so on and so forth. So there were all kinds of range of students among the Buddha. But when the Buddha used to teach, right, he would not uh, uh, kind of compromise with his teaching. I have never seen Buddha compromising with his teaching. He would adopt according to the capacity of the person, but at the end, he will clearly tell his goal, and that is, my dharma is to remove all the afflictions. This is not for the worldly gains, all the eight worldly gains, and this is to attain the nirvana eventually. So Buddha never compromised on this position, right? And then when we look at the subsequent teachers of the Buddhism and the great names in the past, I don't see them mixing with any kind of dharmas. As far as I can see, they had, of course, their interpretation, but aligned with some kind of Buddhist teaching. Somehow, somewhere, they had to authenticate and corroborate their arguments, checking those scriptures where Buddha said something, right? So when you're teaching, for example, Mr. Professor Stephen Bassler, when you say something, you assert something which does not fully align with the teachings of the Buddha, there is a problem, of course. If Buddha were in front of him today, as he uh, and then there are many instances in the suttas where people used to have this kind of you can say uchedavada, what we call nihilism, right? And the Buddha said, no, this is not my teaching, this is not what I am teaching. They had some kind of Atmavada teaching or Shasvatavada teaching or eternalist teaching, some kind of soul. They had idea. These were the students of the Buddha. But he used to say, well, this is not my teaching. I don't teach this one, right? So when we say Buddhism, we take the Buddha as an ideal, as far as I can understand. And then um, we have his teachings. Of course, there are different levels of teachings. I agree with that. But somehow, somewhere, it has to align with his teaching and align with the intention of this teaching, align with the goal of his teaching to say that, okay, this is the teachings of the Buddha. Otherwise, we have to use different shades of word. For example, this is not the Buddha's teaching. This is misinterpretation of teaching, and we also have to use the words such as this is a fake teaching in the name of the Buddha. You are putting the your own words in the mouth of the Buddha and saying that this is the teachings of the Buddha, and we find all these kind of things in the contemporary world. Um, uh, for example, I can give you one example: the modern mindfulness. Right? Yes, it is extracted from the Buddha's teaching. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, And then it is also found beneficial to many. That is also true. But what we call the general modern movement of mindfulness is not exactly what the Buddha taught, right? But the people have this misconception that this is Buddhism somehow. Many people have this, right? And then can we really say that this is Buddha's teaching? No, we need to at least say that this is not. They have their choices, of course. It has its own advantage, of course. But we can clearly say that this is not what the Buddha said. This is not what mindfulness is all about, that was taught by the Buddha, that is practiced within the tradition, and so on and so forth. Right? So we need to be perhaps we need to have this clarity. People have this is a modern world, 21st century. People have their own right to choose what they want. Of course, they can practice anything they want. But when it comes to what is true and what is not true, we have a fact checking system. For example, if there is a fake news circulating around, we have websites where we go and then say that this is fake, this is not true, this video is not true, this fact is not true. We have this criteria for science, we have this criteria for health thing, we have this criteria for economics, we have this
Mhm.
criteria for politics. Then why can't we have this criteria for Buddhism? I
So do
don't
you think
understand.
it's important for us to have a channel or platform for us to check whether this is fake dharma or not? Do you think that's necessary?
I
Vivek?
do think so, of course,
Okay.
because if fake news is not good in
Okay.
terms of politics, if fake news is not good in terms of the health and so on and so forth and finances, it is also not good in terms of Buddhism.
Okay. Now,
That,
now I can see that you are categorizing a so-called fake dharma as something harmful to Buddhism itself, and it's dangerous for us if we
well,
practice the fake dharma.
in a way, for example, let's say if I'm spreading a wrong idea about some kind of mental health or health, let's say, or science,
Mhm.
does it benefit people?
Yeah,
It does not.
but using the example of mindfulness movement that you used
Mhm.
just now, it is beneficial to
Yeah.
many people, and many people enter the door of dharma through this movement as well. So you
I,
don't
that
consider it as an evolution of modern dharma?
Okay, I do not consider this as an evolution, because evolution means you become better and better in a way. That's how I understand the word evolution. It is a kind of a inspiration from Buddha's teaching. It is not Buddha's teaching, but it
Mhm.
is inspiration. It might have some benefit, but that is not aligned with the goal and the teachings of the Buddha, and it is not Buddhism.
So
That's how
you will categorize that as a fake dharma in your
I
your
would.
interpretation.
Yeah, okay. Here, that's why I use several shades of meaning. So it's a
Mhm.
kind of a, you can say it is a commercialized Buddha teaching, not really aligned with the true intention of Buddha.
Okay, we need to have a check and balance system in Buddhism
Yes,
to
I
decide whether
think so.
it's true or fake dharma. Matya, do you agree with that?
Absolutely not.
Okay, let's hear it from you now. Okay.
I completely disagree. Yeah, because
Mhm.
I don't think that anybody can make oneself a policeman for the
Mhm.
Dharma. What one can do is not say this is fake, but
Mhm.
rather say this is not an interpretation which I think is plausible, and then offer clear reasons why. If you
Mhm.
take even Stephen Batchelor, which I completely disagree uh, with his position, I mentioned it earlier, I think it's
Mhm.
almost nonsensical. Nevertheless, this is also partially because we have different ideas also about how texts are transmitted. So this is a very complicated issue and depends a lot from how one feels about it. Bachelor derives some of his ideas from um, a kind of a way in which he edits the Buddhist texts.
Mhm.
So that, for example, he removes the word Arya from the Arya Satyas. He thinks that something went wrong in the text,
Mm.
and we have to remove the word Arya from Arya Satya, and he explains why, and that is part of his interpretation. So it's not such a black and white thing, because he has arguments. So when somebody has an argument, there is no point for me just saying it's fake. It doesn't say anything. What I can do is take up the argument and offer a counter argument showing where I disagree. And then the third person who is listening to both Bachelor and me will come to the wrong conclusion without myself and Bachelor trading insults. You're fake, you're fake. What does that do?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any feedback? Yeah, Bibek, please.
Yes, yes, of course. That's why here I was saying that we need to use different shades of words, and I was giving different examples to illustrate, right? So in the case of Stephen Batchelor, for example, denies, as far as I know, he denies the importance of rebirth. Now, Buddha emphasized this very much. This is a part and parcel of Buddha's teaching. In fact, when he got enlightened, there was a series of knowledges he had, and one of them, which was the part of the knowledge of his bodhi, let's say, was that he recognized all the previous lives with their names and so on and so forth. It's called Purva Nivasana Smriti Jnana, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then this is connected with Buddha's main uh, central teaching, Pratitya Samutpada, or dependent origination. And also dependent origination in terms of the Dwadasanga Pratitya Samutpada. That is how we take rebirth again and again and again because of some kind of ignorance and so on and so forth. So when you are denying the central teachings of the Buddha, then there is a problem. There is definitely a problem. Stephen Batchelor, being himself a monk earlier, and then writing himself several books and so forth. So I would say I would categorize this as a really bad misinterpretation, not a fake dharma, for example, right? Like, but let me give you another example. Um, I don't want to offend anyone, but
Mm-hmm.
it's about the fact. It's about the fact also. As I explained, just like we need real facts in politics, in finance, in health, in the same way we need the real facts about Buddhism too.
Mm.
Now, let me give you an example of our very reverend Sadhguru, for example. He picks certain kind of ideas from the Buddha's life. He invents, he concocts his own storyline about it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? It is not found in the Buddha's text. The name Buddha is there. Some kind of event and something is kind of it resembles with the life of the Buddha, but everything else he invents himself and presents it as if it is Buddha's teaching. This is fake teaching. I'm sorry to say that, right? So
But it
we need to.
doesn't refute Buddhist teaching.
Sorry.
Yeah, Madhya.
I don't think that Sadhguru presents himself as a Buddhist teacher
No,
or
that,
these
that is
things,
another.
these
That,
teachings
sorry,
exactly.
that is a whole lot of problem in India and Nepal, because people think that he is enlightened. That means he has the equal enlightenment of the Buddha, so he can just teach anything from anywhere. That's the idea among the students.
Right?
Let me and
Okay, okay, one
let,
second.
Okay,
let me
no,
clarify a little.
okay.
Let me clarify a little
Maybe
bit
I'll let you
because
finish, and then I would like Mattia to respond.
yeah, yeah,
Please, please.
I have no idea. No, sorry. I have no problem people saying that Sadhguruji is completely enlightened. I have absolutely no idea, and I respect him, and because he's respected person in Nepal and India, all over the world. He's doing great jobs. For example, he's saving the soil and so on and so forth. Amazing things that was never achieved before. Excellent. But when he takes some kind of teachings from the Buddha's teaching, then he invents, concocts its own thing, which was never said by the Buddha, and then presents it as if it is the teachings of the Buddha, which does not align with the real intention, the real teaching, what is found in the teaching. That then there is a problem, right?
So in short, you
So
say that we need to point it out and we need to say it out loud that this is wrong, right?
you want me absolutely to say that, but
Yeah.
here you can say that I'm saying it in a different way, but I'm yes, I agree with you, but different way, in the sense that there are some people, just like Bem said, Buddhism is very difficult, very subtle. They misunderstand it. So
Mhm.
we cannot blame them for misunderstanding. There are people who prefer certain parts of the authentic teachings of the Buddha. We cannot blame them, but that is still not the teachings of the Buddha. Now, there are some people who completely concoct up an unreal story, presenting it as the teachings of the Buddha. We need to put these things into different categories, right? So,
Okay. Bibek will be a very good policeman in doing this. Okay.
I, I
Uh,
think there's problems with that. I mean, more
yeah.
than one problem.
Okay.
Let me try to explain why I think there are a few problems, if you put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, the basic problem is that this is actually very personal, in the sense that if somebody has a lot of faith in Sadhguru, they believe that Sadhguru is a kind of, if not exactly omniscient, but at least visionary yogin who can perceive things that happened in the past better than what is found in the texts, then for that person, your whole argument is worthless, because they will say, fine, this is what you have in your text, but he can see it from the perspective of direct perception. And if you ask them how, they say, because we have faith in him. So it boils down to criticizing their faith, which I wouldn't do. So if you want to have an argument about something, you have to start with a common ground. And the common ground is, where do you get your information about the Buddha's life, for example? If a person tells me I get it from my own visions, I say, okay, let's not discuss. That is, have your own vision. Nice. It's up to you. If somebody tells me I get it from the Sanskrit texts and they give a reconstruction which I think is not found there, then we can have a discussion. I have some basis. I can say, okay, I didn't find it. Where did you find this? Did you misread this sentence? There is some basis. But if a person starts from a very different perspective about how they are gathering their own knowledge, and Sadhguru is quite clear about it. He doesn't care about anything, about anything that has ever been written. He says it's a mistake. It's a mistake. So we don't know where he gets his things. So, okay, he has already told us. If some people feel that that's what they want to believe in, that is up to them. It's not.
And
How are you going to have a discussion with someone who says, "Oh, I'm a mystic. It doesn't matter. Oh, I get it from who knows where." Then it's okay. There is no basis for
okay, for the
discussing.
benefit of viewers as well, Osho also claimed himself as a
no,
mystic. Actually,
no,
he even called himself as
I
Bhagawan.
did say
No,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, if
Okay,
you
okay.
remember, but yeah, I did say that the students of Sadhguru recognize him as enlightened. Okay, and I have absolutely no problem with that. That's fine. They can get the teachings from the Sadhguruji, and then they can consider him as enlightened. I don't know what that means from their own point of view. That's totally fine. um, I have no disagreement there. There is no disagreement. My disagreement is about fact checking, right? And then when he presented his teachings, for example, he says, okay, let me remember one instance. There was a Buddha Purnima, and he talks about the Buddha, how he got enlightened in the Buddha Purnima. Now, in the extant range of Buddhist texts that the Buddhists preserved since 2,500 years ago, from since the good 2005 years. This is not attested. So can I say that this is from the point of view of Buddhism, or is it totally?
Okay, quickly, Mattia, I have to go to Ben. Quickly, just 1-2 minutes, and then we'll conclude the session. There are so many questions to be discussed. I think we're going to make another episode for this topic. Okay, Mattia, please.
No, I mean, but what you're saying, that you're going back to the text, and it doesn't. So there's no common ground. You see, this is the problem. There is no common ground, so there is not even any point in addressing it. You can just say, well, unless you believe that Sadhguru knows something that nobody knows, then it seems that that is not found in any Buddhist text. But if you believe that, then enjoy what that is your form of Buddhism. And I mean, it's not even meant to be Buddhism, because his whole system is not even Buddhist. It's mystic. That's what he explains. It's a mystic system. So you want a mystic system from somebody who you totally rely upon, fine, it's okay. It's you want to get the story of a Buddha from the perspective of that person, fine, go and listen to it. Then you can, of course, the people who want to know about Buddhism and go to listen to about Buddhism from Sadhguru, it means they already have a certain faith towards him, more than they have towards anybody in the Buddhist tradition. So it's not a big problem. I think it's okay. They don't have much connection to the Buddhist tradition to begin with. If somebody wants to know about Buddhism and they go to Sadhguru, what can I say to them? It is that they don't really want to know about Buddhism. They want to know about a kind of inner insight that only Sadhguru has about Buddhism, which is a different story, which actually exists even historically, I mean, in terms of classical systems, because there are some Shaiva systems wherein Buddhism is incorporated as an intermediate step. And from their perspective, they understand Buddhism better than the Buddhist, because they understand exactly where it fits. So we have to also understand it in these terms, that it's also a matter of philosophical divergence there. So I think there is not enough common ground there to decide even if it's fake or true. It's just different pramana. They use different means of knowledge. That he's the means of knowledge in that case. The valid means of knowledge is himself. So what can I tell him? If we discuss, he says, this is what happened. I say, okay, what proof do I have? I am the proof. Okay, nice to meet you. Goodbye, proof. I think that that's all we can discuss. That there's not. So I don't have a problem with him, in the sense maybe he's a nice person to go play golf with, but it's just
motorcycling.
Yes. But
okay.
So you see what I'm saying? It's not. There is no common ground. That's my point.
Mm-hmm. Ben, I want to come to you now. So Mattia said there's no common ground to begin with, even to debate about what is fake or not fake. Yeah? But Bibek said that we need to point out, since we disagree with our authentic view in Buddhism, So what's your take on this, Ben?
Well, before you answer this question, first of all, I would like to say that I'm a mystic and I have visions. I'm joking.
I believe you.
So whatever I say is true and pramana, because I am saying this. And answering your question, I would side with Vivek. Because you see, if I say something out of my mind, I say that, well, I have visions. And yesterday, a bodhisattva came to me and said that this is Buddhism. And I say something and give it out as Buddhism. It will not be Buddhism, because as we said before, all of us many times said before that in order to understand is it some kind of Buddhist teaching or not, you need to fulfill the criteria. I mean, this teaching or this statement must fulfill the criteria. Otherwise, it couldn't be called some kind of Buddhist explanation. So Of course, Matthew is also is also right from other point of view. If somebody believes in Sadhguru, well, just let this person believe him. But you need to understand, if somebody, let's not use this name for some vague person. I don't want to be.
So,
So, for example, if some person says that this is pure Buddhism, and he doesn't have any references, he doesn't have any reasons, there is no such explanation in any of the treatises and sutras, we safely can say this is not Buddhism. And quite often, it must be pointed out to people. Because you see, for example, just imagine, I am a simple person, and somebody says, "Oh, he is this and he is that," for no reason at all. It's defamation. And of course, I would like to say something, something to that person. And it seems to me that it's kind of the same situation with Buddhism. Of course, you cannot stop people from trusting or following this or that person. But if it's not Buddhism, it should be stated that it's not Buddhism. And before Bibek, I see that Bibek would like to say something. Before I turn to Bibek, I would like to watch a debate between Mr. Bachelor and
and
Matya. So
okay, let's
Matya,
arrange that. Let's arrange
if
that
you had
if we can. If we can, let's hope that we can arrange that one day. Yeah,
No,
I hope to hear that as well. Okay,
I,
Vivek.
I just want to say few things. Once again, I would like to repeat the same thing. I have absolutely no problem Sadhguru being a mystic and a teacher and everything. No problem at all. People consider him enlightened. No problem at all, because there are different types of enlightenment expressed in Indian tradition. They call it enlightenment. Well, we have our own terms in Sanskrit, but they call it enlightenment. Absolutely no problem at all. um, and then also, for example, people are inspired by the Buddha, and then they want to do something with the teachings of the Buddha. That is also not a problem. But when it comes to, then we come to the when we come to the teachings of the Buddha, let's say, because Ananda was actually concerned when Buddha was dying, right? And then there are several instances in the sutra where Buddha said how to identify my teachings. um Kind of, he gave a criteria to determine whether it's teaching or not, because I think the concern was there in the sangha. I can give you one historical issue. When Jaina's teacher, Vardhamana, he passed away. Then there was a kind of a dispute among his students. Then they asked, like, okay, how can we determine whether this teaching is Buddha's teaching or not Buddha's teaching, and so on and so forth. There was a concern among the Buddhists too. Of course, this is not a new thing in Buddhism. This is a concern that is being expressed since 2,500 years. Even among Buddhists, they have been kind of debating among themselves what is the authentic and what is not authentic, what is the real drishti or the view, and what is not. They have been doing it. That's not a problem. But when it comes to really determining, okay, someone says that I am teaching Buddha's teaching, or I am kind of quoting from the Buddha, but it does not align with any of the existing things that we know about the Buddha, and we have so much things, volumes and volumes of Buddha's teaching, then there is a problem, and someone needs to say that this does not align with the Buddha's teaching. This is not the Buddha's teaching. This is not found in any of the authentic lineages, and so on and so forth. So, and why that is wrong and how that is something that I'm not being able to understand, because nobody likes wrong information today. Nobody likes fake information today, right? That is not even in the 21st century, when we have different point of views about many things, but still we don't like something that is totally wrong, right? So that's
Mm.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying. So when it comes to Buddha's teaching, please check whether that aligns with the teachings of the Buddha that is preserved by the Buddhist. Now, if someone wants to invent a new thing, saying that okay, this is my mystic visions and so on and so forth, okay, fine, but still the Buddhist can say that okay, this is not the teachings of Sakyamuni Buddha, right?
Mm. Okay.
So
Mm-mm.
mm,
Okay. Yeah. May I quickly get a response from and then from Dr. Matia, and then we need to wrap up today's
I
session.
think now that you are looking at it from, you're not making an important distinction, because when you take Sadhguru as an example, he's not somebody who presents himself as teaching the Dharma, meaning the Buddhist Dharma. So it's no problem at all. And I will give you an example why it is no problem at all. In the Buddhist tradition, you see that, for example, Shiva, Maheshwara, is regarded in some cases, let's say, as a Dharmapala, right?
Mm.
And sometimes is regarded as a student of Buddha, sometimes as a student of Avalokiteshvara, who receives Vyakarana, a prophecy about future Buddhahood from Avalokiteshvara, together with Uma. All this is in the Buddhist tradition. Let's say this is my view about Shiva, and I can talk about Shiva about in this way in public, because this is the Buddhist view about Shiva. Now, of course, a Shaiva master will say, no, this is not true, because Shiva is the creator of the universe. Shiva is Sada Shiva, is eternal. And in our text, which talk about Shiva, nothing like that is ever found. So everything you said is all fake. It's not fake. It's just that I have a different philosophy, and for me, Shiva has a different role. Very similarly, for the Kashmiri Shaiva, the Buddha has a different role. For Sadhguru, the Buddha has a different role. And you just understand that the context is different. They belong to a different religion. Of course, we're going to look at the Buddha in a non-Buddhist way.
Mm. Okay, I want to get a quick response from
can I
Ben,
quickly
and then okay, wait, let me hear
for a
from Ben
second?
first, then and then to Vivek. Okay, Ben, let's hear your views.
Well, you put it too simple, Mattia. I must say that if you say that, oh, Shiva is this, Shiva is that, it's okay. And if Shiva say, oh no, he is creator of the world, and it's also understandable. But if you say that Shiva is this or Shiva is that, and this what Shiva Dharma teaches, it's not true.
Sadhguru doesn't say that.
It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
Sadhguru doesn't say that. That is my point. Sadhguru doesn't say that. You see, this is my point. He never says that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He never said that. But you see, by implication. By implication.
Where?
For example, a simple listener. Just let's take an example. For example, if I say something, and I told you before, I'm a mystic and I have visions, and now I have one of the visions, and I say that, and then Buddha Shakyamuni, that one, he came to Shiva and said, "Oh, I was mistaken. All of what I said before was not true." And if I was mistaken, and I need now to recognize the existence of the creator of the world and etc. If I say something like that, and if I do not claim that this is the Buddhist teaching, still by implication from the Buddhist side, what would you say? If
I would say,
even if I even if you
Mr.
see,
Matia,
for
what will
those
you say?
people, it is necessary to understand, that those people who listen to this kind of explanation, they must understand that this is just one point of view. It is vision of some person like me, and there is different Buddhism, completely not related, not connected to this kind of explanations, visions, and mysticism. This is what I'm talking about. This is what must be very clearly brought to people. That's the only thing I would like to say. Yeah.
This is that's what I was saying. He does that. He's clear from the beginning that what he says has nothing to do with anything ever taught in the Buddhist tradition. I think this is very clear from the way he says it. He says, "I'm a
I,
mystic."
I don't think so much, because in the case of, for example, let me give you an example. In the case of um, uh, Guru Padmasambhava, he he did not say such things. He said that they understand it in this way, but he's a different person. Like the way he presented, you can see that video clearly that he thinks that Buddhists misunderstood it, and I have understood it better, right? And the same
Which is
thing was done by, for the same statement was given by people like, for example, Swami Vivekananda. He said clearly that Buddha's students misunderstood him. I understood him better. He was teaching Vedanta in a different way. So,
Okay, just give
so here,
wait, just give a viewer context. You are referring to the video that Sadhguru say that Guru Padmasambhava is not a Buddhist. Am I right?
we already talked about that in the past.
Yes,
That is
yes.
not true. But
Okay.
here I just wanted to say that, let's say, I'm taking the example of Matya. If someone wants to consider Shiva as their idol and the creator of the world, everything is fine for me. I have no problem at all. Their own personal views or the view of their tradition and so on and so forth. The only thing I would say that this is not true from the point of view of Sakyamuni Buddha. That is all I'm saying here, right?
But the
So,
example was not for that. The example was not relevant to that. The example was on the other side. I wanted you to put yourself in the shoes of a Shiva, listening to what the Buddhists have to say about Shiva. Of course, they can't accept it. In fact, there's Buddhist texts which even say precisely what you, Bem, were saying earlier, more or less, which is they say that, in fact, the Shaiva Tantra, for example, or the Vaishnava Tantra, they were taught to people with specific kleshas because they were not able to stomach the Buddhist teachings.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing.
that's why, Matya, that's why, Matya, I think Buddhists don't say these things in the public. These things started to come only in the modern time when Buddhist teachings were misinterpreted. But Buddhists never went around and tried to police people, saying that, oh, uh,
It was in published books.
Yes, yes.
In
It's published in the
no,
book.
no,
Yeah.
but
books.
that's what I'm saying. And it is in the modern time. But traditionally, Buddhists would not go around and say that, okay, in our tradition, Shiva is this, in our tradition, Vishnu is this. They would not say that because they understand that there is a gradation of teachings in the universe and how the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas function. So they have a different understanding of this. That's a different issue. But when someone comes and claims that the person knows better than the 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 real Buddhists, in the sense of the traditional Buddhists who have been preserving the teachings of the Buddha since 2,500 years ago, and nothing can be found, whatever the person is saying in that corpus, then the claim that this is Buddha's teaching is fake and wrong. We can say that. That's all I'm saying here, right?
But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't claim it. That was my whole point. It doesn't claim it.
Okay, I think
You
we
have
have to.
to you have to.
Due to time constraint, I
Uh,
think we have to stop here. We have to extend this discussion into next episode definitely. The viewers are still here with us, but I think we need to have each and every one of you to conclude, to make a conclusion of tonight's discussion. We start with Matya, Dr. Matya. So, what is fake dharma, and what is the best attitude from us about this so-called fake dharma? Yeah, Matya, please.
I would avoid that term and rather discuss about precisely the points of disagreement. That would be my preference.
Mm. Okay, very short conclusion. Bibek?
Yeah, as we discussed from the beginning, this word is of course vague. We need to define it, whether we are using this term within the Buddhist tradition or among the Indian traditions, or in terms of distinguishing Buddha's teachings with others. As far as Buddha's teachings is concerned, We have 2,500 years of a tradition, unbroken traditions, uh, intact corpus of Buddha's teachings and commentaries and so on and so forth, preserved uh, uh, practices and so on and so forth. So anyone can come and see whether the teaching being said as Buddha's teaching is true or not. There is a way to verify it. There is a way to find the true teachings of the Sakyamuni Buddha, and then that is possible, I would say, in this way.
Okay, thank you, Bibek. And Ben?
I would like to say that even if a person doesn't say that, doesn't claim it be Buddhism of some kind, still by implication, yeah, that's what I want to say. By implication, people will think that this is the Buddhism, and this person, if he or she claims that she or he knows better than Buddhists themselves, and without even saying something like "I think so" or "in my understanding," or the ideas of Buddhists themselves could be different. By my understanding is better. That would be acceptable. But if I say that, Matya, uh, for example, what you explain about Sanskrit grammar is not grammar at all. I had a vision yesterday, and Maheshwara gave me some new grammar, and I'm going to explain this way, and I know better than you, Matya, because I had a vision. And from nowadays, let's call it, even if I don't say that, from nowadays, let's call it the proper Sanskrit grammar by implication. I'm not right. It's not proper to do. And I would say that I
Yeah,
never myself would
yeah,
venture so
exactly.
far to claim something like that I understand something better that, for example, people who spend whole their life studying that. It's so bold, and I'm not so bold. I just have my simple visions and my mysticism.
So, but yeah, I'm going to let you to respond because since you talk about you and Sanskrit grammar. But yeah, please.
No, I would be somewhat. My reaction would not be to say, "Oh, you're fake." My reaction would be like, "Okay, very good. You must change medicines." And
change, change medicine.
I think that's what I'm looking at.
or change or change doctor. Yeah.
Yes, change medicine and doctor.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay,
But
thank
basically,
you.
Matya, what
Oh.
you're saying now that you're implying that it's not right to do because you're saying that you need to change your medicine because it doesn't help you anymore because you have this very very perspective of the world and of Sanskrit grammar. So that's what I'm saying. By implication, you're implying that I'm wrong, but I have my visions.
Yeah, no, of course that was a slight. I was joking, but um, in the case of a public person like Sadhguru, I cannot ask him to change his medicines. So I have to find a different way. I can say that I have a disagreement with you, or that is not the perspective of Buddhist tradition. If somebody asks me, but it's also true that I don't have the kind of charisma that Sadhguru has, and therefore people are not going to ask. You see, I might have studied Buddhism more than Sadhguru, but there will always be more people going to ask Sadhguru about Buddhism that there will be people going to ask me. So I also have to reflect on this particular point. Whose fault is it? Isn't it my fault as well? To some extent it is. So this is also something to be considered.
Mm, okay. If I can integrate both sides or both different position of view, then Matya is talking more about inner attitude towards this kind of Hindu gurus talking about Buddhism, and Bibi and Ben were talking about more on like what should we do about this comment from other teachers or other schools. Am I right? Yeah. I think these two, if we can integrate together, that should be a best way to move forward from here.
Well, I would just say one or two sentences. I would say to the
But I
audience
was
who,
talking more about what to do.
Mm,
uh, but I
okay.
have
Yeah.
as a Buddhist, I have no problem with difference of opinions because Buddhists are the most argumentative lot in the whole history of Indian philosophy. I think Buddhists are the talkers, the debaters, the troublemakers in a way, because they try to investigate everything and so on and so forth. So that is not a problem. Difference of opinion is not a problem. The problem
Mhm.
is about whether something is uh, um, aligning with the teachings of the Buddha, and whether we can authenticate. I mean, we can verify it, right? And there is a way to verify it. So it is not like Buddhism has disappeared, vanished completely. There is no criteria at all, and then it is vague, abstract, completely like a painting of a Picasso. That when you look at the Picasso's painting, everyone can describe it in 10,000 different ways. That is not the case. That these are the impressions of the people, right? That is not the case. So I would like to tell the audience that you need to read the Buddhist scriptures, go to the authentic Buddhist teachers, unbroken traditions, and then you will be able to understand what Buddhism is or is not. That is the general prescription. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I think we we have to end here. We're going to extend this discussion into next episode definitely. And we're talking about the spirit of debating. So when Sadhguru criticize or say wrong things about Buddhism, I don't see anybody from Buddhist circle to come out and defend or to clarify, except from Zosa Kenzi Rinpoche. So this is a phenomenon we need to pay attention to as well. Yeah. Okay. May I invite now Samisha to yeah conclude the session. Yeah. Samisha, please.
Thank you very much. That was a very informative and interesting discussion that we had tonight. For that, I would like to thank Dr. Mathia, teacher Bibek, Brother Baim, and Brother Sherab for the discussion. And now we will conclude this session by short dedication prayer. So I would like to invite each one of you for short dedication prayer. But before that, let me announce this event which we are going to have on 23rd of October on Sunday. And the title of this event is Impermanence and the Certainty of Change, which will be moderated by Sister Stesney Martin. And the contributors will be Venerable Tenzin Dasil, Sister Nivedita, Sister Kat. And yes, first I would like to invite Dr. Matya for the dedication prayer.
यदवाप्तं मया पुण्यं स्तुत्वा त्वां सुविभाजनं निमित्तबन्धनापेतं भूयत्तेनाखिलं जगत्. Whichever merit I have accumulated by praising you who are worthy of praise, may by that the whole world be free from the bondage of signs.
Thank you, teacher. Now, Brother Beam.
Jambe babo jidara kemada kundo zambo de yande jende de tangu geje dalo che geba de da tanjirato ngon. I dedicate all of the merit that we have accumulated today in the same way like Manjushri and Samantha Badra in order to follow their steps.
Thank you, Brother Beam. Teacher Bibek, please. You're muted, sir.
अनेन पुण्येन तु सर्वदर्शिताम् अवाप्य निर्जित्य च दोषविद्विषः जरारुजामृत्युमहोर्निसम्कुलात् समुद्धरेयं भवसागरात् जगत्. So, due to, well, because of this merit, having obtained the omniscience and having removed all the afflictions, may I rescue all the sentient beings from the ocean of perils and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, teacher. Brother Sherab.
Yeah, I'll say it in Mandarin. 愿以此功德普及一切我等一众生，皆共成佛道。 I dedicate this merit to the awakening of all sentient beings.
Thank you, brother. The four great vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. May all beings be well, happy, and safe. Once again, I would like to thank each one of you
Thank you,
and to
everyone.
our audience also.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ram.